Today, we're going to explore one of the most shocking incidents in music history that many fans don't know about. The legendary Man in Black, Johnny Cash, nearly destroyed an entire forest in a single day. This isn't just tabloid gossip, it's a documented incident that shows a rarely discussed side of the iconic musician. We'll cover what actually happened, the devastating environmental impact, and Cash's surprising reaction that left many questioning his character. It was June 27, 1965. Johnny Cash was at the height of his fame. His hit Ring of Fire had topped the charts, and he was a household name across America. But on this particular day, Cash wasn't in a recording studio or on stage. He was out in his truck in Los Padres National Forest in California. Cash had always portrayed himself as an outdoorsman who loved nature. He often went on fishing and hunting trips when he wasn't performing. This particular trip to the Ojai Valley in California was supposed to be just another getaway from his busy life as a music star. As Cash later described in his autobiography, he had been driving his custom Jeep truck deep into the Los Padres National Forest. The vehicle was specially modified for off-road adventures, which Cash enjoyed frequently. What started as a peaceful day in nature would soon turn into a disaster that would haunt the singer for years to come. Here's where the story gets truly shocking. According to court documents and Cash's own admission, his truck suddenly overheated while he was driving on a rough forest road. The overheating caused oil to spill onto the hot engine, which then ignited. Cash initially tried to put out the fire himself, but the flames spread too quickly. In a matter of minutes, his truck was completely engulfed, but that was just the beginning of the disaster. Strong winds that day carried the flames from Cash's vehicle to the surrounding dry vegetation. Due to a particularly hot summer, the forest was like kindling, waiting for a spark. The fire spread rapidly, jumping from tree to tree, consuming everything in its path. Forest rangers and firefighters rushed to the scene, but by then, the blaze had already grown beyond easy control. It took several days and hundreds of personnel to finally contain what became known as the Los Padres Forest Fire. The aftermath of Cash's truck fire was devastating. When the flames were finally extinguished, nearly 500 acres or about 200 hectares of pristine forest had been reduced to ash. This wasn't just any forest. Los Padres National Forest was home to numerous endangered species and delicate ecosystems. Among the most tragic losses were 49 of the area's 53 endangered California condors, one of America's rarest birds of prey. These magnificent creatures, with wingspans reaching up to 10 feet, had been carefully protected in this sanctuary. In one afternoon, decades of conservation efforts were undone. The fire destroyed ancient oak trees, some over 300 years old, and devastated the habitats of countless other wildlife species. Ecological studies conducted afterward estimated that the forest would take at least 30–40 years to recover from the damage, if it ever fully could. The U.S. government didn't take this incident lightly. Cash was sued by the federal government for negligently starting the forest fire. The case, United States vs. John R. Cash, became a notable environmental lawsuit of the era. When questioned in court about his responsibility for the fire, Cash reportedly showed little remorse. According to court transcripts, when asked about the devastation to wildlife, particularly the endangered condors, Cash responded with a shocking statement that haunts his legacy to this day. He reportedly said, "I couldn't care less about those birds." This callous response stunned the courtroom and painted a very different picture of the man, whose music often expressed compassion for the downtrodden. While Cash's lawyers later claimed he was under significant stress and didn't mean what he said, the comment was recorded in court documents and widely reported in newspapers. The court ultimately found Cash liable for the damage. He was ordered to pay $82,001 in damages to the government, all a substantial sum in the 1960s, equivalent to over $700,000 today. It was one of the largest judgments for environmental damage against an individual at that time. To understand this incident more fully, we need to consider what was happening in Johnny Cash's life at this time. This wasn't the Cash of his later years, the reformed, spiritual man who performed at prisons and spoke about redemption. In 1965, Cash was in the depths of a serious addiction to restricted substances. He was taking large amounts of stimulants and sedatives daily, which affected his judgment and behavior. His marriage to his first wife, Vivian, was falling apart, and he was often absent from home, touring extensively and engaging in self-destructive behavior. Friends and band members from this period have described Cash as sometimes erratic and unpredictable. He would go days without sleep, performing high-energy shows while heavily under the influence. The forest fire incident happened during this troubled chapter of his life. This doesn't excuse his actions or his callous response, but it does provide important context. The Johnny Cash who started the fire and made those remarks in court was not the same man who would later find sobriety, recommit to his faith, and become known for his humanitarian work. One of the most interesting aspects of this story is how it contrasts with Cash's later life. After getting clean in the late 1960s and marrying June Carter, Cash underwent a significant personal transformation. In what many see as an attempt to make amends for his past actions, including the forest fire, Cash became involved in various environmental and wildlife conservation efforts in the 1970s and beyond. He performed benefit concerts for environmental organizations and spoke publicly about the importance of protecting America's natural lands. In a 1992 interview, Cash addressed the forest fire incident directly, expressing profound regret. He said, "That fire, that was one of the most shameful things I've ever had to deal with. I've spent a lot of years trying to make up for it in whatever way I can." He donated substantial sums to wildlife rehabilitation programs, specifically focused on birds of prey, and supported the California Condor Recovery Program, which was working to rebuild the population he had inadvertently harmed decades earlier. When I first learned about this incident, I was honestly shocked. Like many of you, I grew up hearing Johnny Cash's music and admiring his journey from a troubled soul to a respected elder statesman of music. This forest fire story seemed completely at odds with the Cash I thought I knew. But as I researched deeper, I began to see this incident as a powerful example of how complicated people can be, especially artists. Cash was not a simple man. He was capable of creating profoundly moving music about suffering and redemption, while also causing real harm and showing callous disregard at times. What I find most valuable about this story is not the shock value, but what it tells us about the possibility of change. The Johnny Cash who carelessly started a forest fire and dismissed the death of endangered birds is the same man who later became an advocate for prison reform, Native American rights, and yes, environmental protection. This doesn't erase the damage he caused, especially to those irreplaceable natural resources. The forest eventually regrew, but those specific condors are gone forever. Yet Cash's story reminds us that even people who make terrible mistakes can recognize their errors and work to become better. So what should we take away from this dark chapter in Johnny Cash's life? I think it's this: our heroes are human. They make catastrophic mistakes, show poor judgment, and sometimes reveal ugly sides of themselves. But that doesn't mean we should either idolize them blindly or cancel them entirely. Johnny Cash's legacy includes both his music and his mistakes. The forest fire incident reveals a troubled man who caused real harm, but his subsequent life shows someone who fought his demons and tried to make amends. What do you think about this story? Does it change how you view Johnny Cash? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might be interested.